Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Day 2 at Snetterton for the GT Cup Championship. We've seen some great racing in yesterday's sprint race and our first pit stop race of the weekend. We've now got our second sprint race of the day, just heading out onto circuit now. So whilst the cars head out onto track, let's look back at some of the highlights from yesterday's pit stop race. Well, in the pit stop race, pole position went the way of Simon Orange because he set the fastest lap in the sprint race earlier on in the day on the very final lap of that race. Simon Orange would lead the charge up towards Ritchie's corner with Morgan Tilbrook in second place. And Lucky Kira in the black Ferrari would be starting from the pit lane because he was excluded for being slightly underweight. Simon Orange would lead as they went up towards Wilson for the first time, with Morgan Tilbrook slotting into second and John Dellin in third. But the car to watch out for was the car that started in 23rd position on the grid. Ian Loggy, involved in a race 1 incident, didn't set a lap time, so would be carving his way through the field. Problems early on for the Caffeine 6 with Par Motorsport Porsche in the hands of Tim Kresick. He would limp back to the pit lane with a puncture. Also, there was a great fight going on in the early stages between John Whitehouse in the number 44 McLaren, who had got right on his rear bumper, Graham Tilley. Russ Lindsay was tapped into a spin. He would recover, but there would be further problems with that car, whilst the number 16 Ram Racing Mercedes, in the hands of the Scotsman Ian Loggy, was carving its way through the order, was up inside the top 10 and closing in on the cars ahead of it. The number 7 Radical in the hands of Steve Burgess was leading Group GTO, whilst for the lead of the race, Simon Orange and Morgan Tilbrook were still absolutely together. There was no gap at all between the pair of them. Group GTH in the early stages was being led by youngster James Wallace, and another car that made good progress from the back of the grid after problems in race 1 was Ian Campbell at the wheel of the number 23 McLaren. Russ Lindsay's car back into the pit lane. We had a spin out on circuit for Sarah Mizza at the wheel of one of the Formula Woman cars. But for Ian Loggy, he was about to come up against the pro drivers who were carving their way through the field. Morgan Tilbrook had jumped out of the number 66 car, handed it over to Marcus Clutton, and that would see the quicker pros scooting past Ian Loggy, who was still either way on for a good result. Michael O'Brien, though, had taken over the number 67 car, and it would be the Orange Racing powered by JMH car that would take the win, its third win of the season.
Hello and welcome to Snetterton for the third round of the GT Cup Championship 2022. I'm Michelle Livings and I'll be bringing you all the action from today's racing. We've got a packed grid across the 4 groups, and as ever there is going to be some spectacular on-track action, and we'll have it all for you. The cars are going to be heading out, in fact they're just about to head out onto the grid for our sprint race. But just before we do that, let's have a little chat with the driver of car number 22.
So Michael, cracking day for yourself and Simon yesterday, picking up that win in the pit stop race.
Yeah, it was a great day for us yesterday. Obviously second in the sprint, winning the pit stop race. It couldn't have really gone any better. We had, I think for us and sort of the standard that Simon's been setting this year, subpar qualifying, and arguably got a bit lucky in the sprint race yesterday, but then posted the fastest lap to get us pole position, and then obviously enabled us to go on and win the feature race. So a really good day yesterday. Yeah.
You were leading the GT3 Championship standings by 6 points at the beginning of the day. Those 2 fastest laps mean coming into today you're leading it by 8 points.
Yeah, exactly. Small gains, and I think we've got to be happy with that when we've got opposition like Morgan and Marcus, you know, really setting the standard in British GT as well. I think for me and Simon to be, you know, bettering them and adding small amount of points to the championship is all we can really hope for, because they're going to bring their A game every time. So it's going to be hard to do anything more than that, really.
And finally, now, just your thoughts on Simon stepping up from a GT4 car to a GT3. You know, that's quite a chasm to leap, but the way he's dealt with it.
Yeah, it really is, and I think all of us were a little bit, not quietly confident, but quite optimistic on how he would find the step from GT4 and the Ginetta to the GT3. He's always been good in the faster, higher speed corners, and having the, as you probably know from last year, having the commitment wasn't one of Simon's big problems. So he sort of adapted really well and obviously picked up the high speed corners and that trusting the car and level of grip pretty much instantly. It's then a bit of refinement now in the slow speed, more mechanical corners, but yeah, he's really done an amazing job so far, to be honest.
Well done on yesterday. Good luck for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, as promised, the cars are lining up on the grid behind me. We're actually waiting for our pole position to come through at the moment. Ian Loggy is on pole. It's actually GT3s across the front here, but we do have the other Ian Campbell. He's ready to go. And we've got a few more. We've got Simon Orange, who's going to filter through in a bit as well in position number 3. Mark, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit because we've had a couple of withdrawals, haven't we, since the racing yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, Michelle. We had, unfortunately, problems for Richard Chamberlain, who claimed a win in Group GTO yesterday in his orange Porsche. His first championship points of the season, Michelle. He had such a difficult year. To finally get with the win was great, but a cracked exhaust means that he's out for the weekend. And also there was a problem in qualifying this morning for the number 17 Orange Racing with JMH McLaren. Will Dendy, electrical issues with that car, almost an electrical short that caused a bit of an issue with the car. So they're out for the weekend as well, Michelle.
Yeah, I actually heard one of the drivers saying, oh, they were telling me that I was on fire, and I thought I was racing brilliantly. Then I realised I actually was on fire.
I hadn't heard that one.
I overheard in the GT Cup warning.
It was a shame for them as well, because Will Dendy brought that car to the top step of the group podium as well for the first time yesterday. So two cars that made their first group wins of the season yesterday, both out for the day.
Yeah, they've had to withdraw today. The other thing as well, watch your back, everybody. We have got our car coming through. Is that our number 16? Yes, it is. There it is. That's Ian Loggy coming into place on pole position there. Fantastic.
Driver of the day yesterday, Michelle, was Ian Loggy.
Superb. Let's hope he has another good one today. The other thing, sorry, Mark.
He got punted off, just in the wrong place at the wrong time on lap number 1 yesterday. So didn't set a lap time. Started off the back of the grid, Michelle, 23rd. I know you weren't here.
Yeah.
Finished 3rd place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's some driving. Well, let's hope. Well, he doesn't have to replicate it because, of course, he's on pole position right now. Should we go and see if we can have a quick word? I know he's having a bit of a pep talk, but let's see how he's feeling. Once the chat's over, because this is the all-important stuff, of course, is that they are ready to go and briefed and know exactly what they're doing. Ian, can I just have a quick word? You had a tremendous drive, didn't you? I've just been hearing about it from Mark Werrell yesterday. Oh, I don't think he can hear. You had a tremendous drive, didn't you, yesterday? Yeah.
It went really well coming from the back, so it was pretty tough. It was a long 50 minutes, but we got the job done.
Yeah. Well, a little bit easier for you today, being on pole position.
Yeah, it's always nice to be at the front, so let's hope we can get a breakaway right at the start, and hopefully everyone squabbles and I can make a bit of a gap, but you just never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm going to let you get on because the whistle's blowing, which means I need to get off the grid. So, Mark, it's over to you for the full rundown.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. Yeah, we'll go through the grid very shortly, but what we do need to do is introduce my co-commentator who claimed the championship with his dad last year overall. Sam Neary joins me back in commentary. Sam, great day yesterday. Thanks for joining me again today.
No, thank you very much for having me again. Yesterday was brilliant, as we saw really good racing from everyone, and surprisingly clean for Snetterton. We know Snetterton can have these pinch points like turn 2 and turn 4. We did see one incident at turn 2 yesterday, but hopefully today that can be rectified and everyone can get it through this 25-minute race.
What was your highlight or standout point, either good or bad from yesterday? Either something you were surprised with that you thought would happen that didn't, or just one of the drives or drivers?
I was really impressed with Ian Loggy. I went and spoke to him after and just said how incredible his drive was. Coming from 24th to 3rd is no easy feat, and it was a lot of overtakes from him. And it looked like he made no contact with anyone as well. So no, really impressed by Ian Loggy yesterday.
I'd have to say, yeah, the driver of the day is awarded was rightly true. And another driver I would pick out would be possibly driver who's just coming on in leaps and bounds. Mark Hopton had a great day yesterday in the number 77 car. Let's guide you through the grid then as they head off on their formation lap based on the qualifying times from this morning for these cars. So as they head around the circuit, it's Ian Loggy that's on pole position with Ian Campbell that's sitting alongside. Row 2 of the grid is Simon Orange and Morgan Tilbrook, and the 3rd row of the grid sees Mike Price line up alongside the number 7 Radical, which for this race is Steve Burgess. It's John Dillon and Graham Tilley that are there on row number 4. Onto the 5th row of the grid, it's John Whitehouse that's behind the wheel of the 44 McLaren, and the number 9 Lamborghini has Jensen Lunn on board. Lucky Kira and Charlotte Birch line up there on row number 6. Onto the 7th row of the grid, That's where we should see Roy Millington will line up on the 7th row of the grid, and alongside is James Wallace. And then the next row of the grid will be a gap where we should have had Will Dendy, but that number 17 car, as we know, is out for the day, and therefore next up will be Adam Hatfield that will start at the wheel of the 25. Onto the next row of the grid, the Make Happen Racing number 69 Mercedes will be Chris Hart for this race, and alongside is Tomas Shahan, and then it is Philip Carter and Tim Kresick that line up on row number 10. The 11th row of the grid is John Curry and Mark Hopton, with the 12th row of the grid being Steph Saw lining up alongside Erica Hoffman. And then towards the tail end of the field is the American Ron Trenker at the wheel of the Greystone GT car. So that's the way the grid lines up. Looking at that grid, largely as expected, I would have thought. Nobody clearly with any issues in qualifying. All went to plan.
Yeah, exactly. What is really exciting me about this race is we're seeing a few of the pro sporting drivers out against some of the AM drivers. So I'm sure in the GTH class there's going to be quite a few battles on track, which is always interesting. And we know the GT4 battles or the GTH battles are always really good in the GT Cup Championship.
Yeah, so where we've got AM drivers and pro sporting drivers and then pro drivers, the way it works is that the AM drivers can start any race that they want to over the weekend. If you're a pro sporting driver, you can only start one of the two sprint races. You can't start both. You can only start one. And in the case of some pro sportings, they don't start either. And if you're a pro driver, you're not allowed in the sprint races. You're not allowed at all. So that's the way that it works. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in Group GTH for the GT4 homologated cars and what else is going on with the rest of the field. So they're just working their way around in neat 2x2 order, ready for the start of this 25-minute sprint race.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting race this. Really looking forward to the start. They just need to make sure to make it clean through turn 1, and then into turn 2 is also almost turn 1 with the risk factor.
So here they come then. Graham Tilley, talking to him earlier on, he drives the number 4 TechServe car. He was just saying he knows that he's found probably, 1.5 seconds from where he was earlier on around this circuit, but he's still got another 1.5 that he needs to find at this stage. But he's getting there under the coaching of Will Tregerth, who is his pro. So here we go. We are about to get things underway. Ian Logie and Ian Campbell, the two Ians on the front row of the grid, Mercedes and McLaren. 25-minute race, lights go out, and we're away and racing for the 3rd time this weekend in the GT Cup Championship. As this pack of cars heads up towards the first corner, it's going to be Ian Logie that leads the way. Ian Campbell in 2nd place. Simon Orange slots his way into 3rd position still, despite the fact that Morgan Tilbrook was trying to squeeze his way through. But it's Mercedes from McLaren, from McLaren. By far the most popular car, aren't they, McLarens? Whether it be in Group GTH or Group GT3, a lot of them on the grid.
They have shown how quick they are in the GT Cup as well, and I think we might have seen someone go off at turn 1 a little bit, so hopefully they're back on track. But yeah, the McLaren looks like a strong car. It's a strong package with the rear engine, especially around Snetterton, so it'll be interesting to see if they can catch Ian Logie.
Look at Ian Logie already. Simon Orange trying to carve his way at the inside of Ian Campbell, just about to sneak his way through. The orange powered by JMH. Dark blue and orange McLaren should go through. Couldn't quite see whether he finally pulled off the move, but certainly looked as though he'd got track position. There's Ron Trenker, the American, who every time he comes to a circuit is, of course, learning it. He's not been to any of these circuits before, but it is indeed, yeah, Simon Orange has gone through and ahead of Ian Campbell, who is down in the number 23 car to 3rd position and coming under pressure from the 66 of Morgan Tilbrook. And right behind Morgan Tilbrook is the Group GTO leading radical of Steve Burgess. The man from Nottingham runs very wide, raises the dust in the background, bounces over the curbs. That slows his progress down the Bentley straight, but thankfully for him, it's a quick kind of straight line puncture, I'm afraid. That's John Dillon, isn't it? The Scott Sport Lamborghini. Didn't see any contact. And off is Ian Campbell. He's gone backwards. Thankfully, I think, avoiding the barriers at Brundle and Nelson. So it was a clean start to the race, but we've got John Dillon limping round with a puncture. Ian Campbell having to wait for the whole pack to go through, Sam, before he can rejoin.
That is a real big shame for Ian Campbell. He had an incredible qualifying this morning, qualifying P2, which is his best qualifying in GT Cup. So it's a real shame to see that. It looks like he's struggling a little bit on cold tyres, but to go off there, it could be a hit from the rear, which is really sad for Ian Campbell.
Let's just have a look. There's tyres that need cleaning up. There's no obvious sign of damage, particularly on the very short glimpse that we got of the tail end of the car, but all of this has played beautifully into the hands of Ian Logie, who is 3 seconds up the road after the first lap. You know, we know Ian is a very quick driver. He's hugely experienced. He's been racing the Mercedes for a good number of years, but he's doing a brilliant job. Look at the fight that's going on for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, though. Simon Orange under attack from Morgan Tilbrook, whilst they've also got Steve Burgess in the Radical, the Group GTO car, sitting right behind them.
I'm sure Ian Logie will be smiling underneath that helmet, seeing everyone in his mirrors fighting. he can now just get that gap and sort of not focus on them. He'll shut off his mirrors and just keep going for lap times now. But it's really interesting to see this battle between Simon Orange and Morgan Tilbrook. We know Morgan's had that experience racing in these sort of battles, as we see Steve Burgess using all the track. And we just got notified that the green at turn 4 is now the track limit, so they can go over that curb, a little bit of grass street, but can't go any further.
That was an official notification that the drivers were given, yeah. So typical racing drivers, as soon as you give them it, they'll absolutely use it, and maybe a bit more, so you might need to rein them back in again later over the weekend. Morgan Tilbrook trying to squeeze his way to the inside at Williams. Well, Simon Orange was very brave there, just cut across the nose of the car. Rear visibility through the wing mirror is not great in these cars, Sam, but they do have rear cameras, don't they?
Some cars have rear view cameras, some don't. It's an optional extra for most cars. We just see Steve Burgess with that power from the Radical make that move, which is really interesting to see, but I'm sure we'll see Morgan Tilbrook coming back around Coram, which is a corner that suits these GT3 cars massively. They've got bigger tyres than the Radical, they can carry more speed, and the aero always helps. So I'm sure we'll see Morgan Tilbrook, who looked like he was on the charge, trying to get past Simon Orange.
What Morgan Tilbrook needs to be careful of is Mike Price is right behind him as well. Mike's had a brilliant weekend as well. I was having a good chat to Mike Price yesterday. He was really pleased with what they were doing. Disappointed with that suspension failure for Cameron McLeod in the pit stop race yesterday, but he was pleased with the pace that they got. John Dillon has limped the car back into the pit lane. The car just being inspected by the mechanics, and then they'll hopefully send him back out on his way. Now, Steve Burgess, you were saying you thought Morgan Tilbrook might try and re-attack him. Steve Burgess has done exactly the opposite. He's gained another place. He's thrown ahead of Simon Orange.
Yeah, which is incredible. I'm sure you'll see the GT3 cars catching back up through these slow speed corners. We know that Radical is extremely fast in a straight line, but it's great to see that he's making these moves on these modern GT3 cars, and it's really great to see these cars racing. As we've seen Mike Price's family jumped onto this battle ahead. And as you said, Mike Price has been really impressed in this GT3 Mercedes. It's his first season in it, and he has been up to the pace with some of the fastest AMs.
Yeah, Mike, we've usually seen racing in things like Porsches, haven't we? Whether it be in the Porsche Club Championship, in the Cayman Sprint Series as well that we've got, Porsche Sprint Series, which he'll be back out in I think a few weeks' time. He was suggesting he might come back out in that, but he's thoroughly enjoying driving the Mercedes. He did say to me he thinks the GT3 cars really suit his driving style. So having snuck past the GT3 McLarens, the Group GTO leading Radical is now disappearing up the road a little bit, but we've still got a good fight going on for 3rd, 4th and 5th in the race. That will be for 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the GT3 category. Simon Orange, followed by Morgan Tilbrook, then the light green Mercedes in the hands of Mike Price. I've got to say, John Whitehouse is doing a great job as well at the wheel of the number 44 Paddock Motorsport McLaren. He's there completing the top 6 at the moment.
Yeah, John Whitehouse, both of them are new to this car this season, and they're both very gentleman drivers, and he's doing a really good job to keep up with these AMs, as we're starting to see Steve Burgess set 2 purple sectors on this lap, which is really interesting to see. Steve Burgess is really on a charge, and hopefully we can see him catch up to Ian Loggy and maybe even challenge for the win.
There goes the number 25 car, which is another one of the Paddock Motorsport cars. That's the GT4 McLaren in the hands of Adam Hadfield, a former champion in this category from a couple of seasons ago. What we're also looking at is the number 69 Make Happen Racing Mercedes fighting away with James Wallace. Now, this will be for the lead of Group GTH at this stage, so pushing hard to try and maintain the lead advantage is Chris Hart at the wheel of the Mercedes, but the Porsche is closing up on him for the lead of Group GTH, which was for the GT4 homologated cars. We'll have to see whether there was a shuffle for the order. There has not, however, been a shuffle in the order for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Simon Orange, really impressed with it. I know Michael O'Brien in the interview that we did was alluding to it, but you know, he's come on so strong. Morgan Tilbrook's had an extra year understanding GT3 cars than Simon Orange, so for Simon to be going as well as he is goes to show how well he's done. Yes, they've done a lot of testing, but he's got to grips with it.
I think it's really showing how good of a championship GT Cup is for bringing on these AM drivers. They get a lot more seat time than the pros in this instance, which is really good to see, and it really helps them develop themselves. But that lap, we saw Steve Burgess go almost a second faster than Ian Loggy. So that 5-second gap in maybe 5 laps time, that could be down, and it'd be really interesting to see them two battling.
You're talking about pro sporting drivers coming into this race. Well, Adam Hadfield at the wheel of the number 25 McLaren has now moved that car up into 2nd place in Group GTH. He's got himself ahead of James Wallace, the 16-year-old behind the wheel of the Porsche, and there's also the second of the Paddock Motorsport cars of Tamer Shahal not that far behind as well. So first, second, third and fourth, as we so often see in Group GTH, is a great little battle, and we've got amongst them 3 different manufacturers, again going to show the balance of performance. It works.
Yeah, the balance of performance, as we said yesterday, it's a very difficult thing to get right, but the GT Cup have really nailed it this year, and we're seeing the Paddock Motorsport cars jumping up the field. As we know, Paddock Motorsport are also a new team who are run by Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman. So both of them are, experienced racers, and they really know how to set up a car, and it's great to see them climbing back up the field.
Great to see climbing back up the field as well, the number 23 McLaren of Ian Campbell, which has suffered no ill effects following its spin down there at Brundle and Nelson. He's still way down in the teens at the moment, but he is making progress, and of course he is getting past cars that don't have the same amount of power and aero as him, so he should pick up places reasonably quickly. But of course, the more places he picks up, the harder it becomes to pick up the next place as well. So Ian Loggy leading through all of this by nearly 5 seconds, but Steve Burgess in the Radical, fastest lap of the race last time through, Sam, 1 minute 50.264.
Yeah, I think Ian has just been told that Steve is coming. He's just gone a little bit faster, but Steve is still pulling out the lap time. It's 5 tenths faster that lap, which is really incredible to see that Radical even keeping up with these GT3 cars. So he's doing an incredible job, and hopefully we're going to see a battle for the lead with 16 minutes remaining. There is still a lot of time for Steve Burgess to catch up.
The Radical did take a win in Group GTO in the pit stop race yesterday, but they were lucky to get it to the flag. One of the pistons came out on the brakes, and Ben Dimmock lost all brakes down at the bottom of the Bentley Straight. Scary moment.
Yes, I was speaking to Ben right before this, actually, and he was telling me how scary that was. As we just see the Radical is twitching under the brakes a little bit, so hopefully that is an issue, and it's just him pushing hard. It's another hot day today, so the rear tyres do get hot again. But we are seeing Simon Orange almost being a bottleneck to these GT3 cars. So I'm sure we'll see Morgan Tillwell try and make a move, but we know Snetterton is very hard to overtake.
You were saying it's so hard to overtake, so all Simon Orange needs to do is just make sure he nails the apexes, gets cleanly off the corners, compromise your speed going in if you need to, if you feel that the cars behind are quicker than you, but nail it coming off. And in particular, out of this corner at Murray's, you've got to get a good exit. Out of Williams, you've got to get a good exit. And as long as you get good exits out of those and get on the apexes on the rest of them, it's almost impossible to get past, is it?
Exactly. If you get that exit speed, these GT3 cars with the aero, it is so hard to keep up sometimes. So if you do get that exit speed, it's brilliant. As we're just seeing, the gap, it's sort of leveled out towards Steve Burgess and Ian Loggy, so only 2 tenths faster that lap, so there's still 4.5 seconds gap. I was just seeing the black and white flag coming out for a lot of these drivers, which means they are being quite naughty and doing track limits.
Just having a look here now, this is the number 9 car. This is Jensen Lunn, who leads Group GTC in the Lamborghini. He's got Graham Tilley's GT3 car behind him at the moment, which he'll want to try and keep behind him as well, because whilst that Lamborghini is a challenge spec car, the car behind is in a different group, but because he's got a car between himself and the Ferrari, that's an important thing, because it means that Jensen Lunn is not under attack from the black Ferrari behind, Lucky Kira, because whilst the Lamborghini leads Group GTC, the Ferrari's second in the group, so keeping that bit of traffic between you is a good thing. And this could be a change for the lead of Group GTH. Adam Hatfield, the former champion, right alongside Chris Hart at the wheel of the Make Happen Racing Mercedes, who has done enough at the moment to try and keep him at bay, and they both need to watch their mirrors, because Ian Campbell at the wheel of the GT3 car is trying to carve his way through the order after his problems on lap 1.
This is the perfect moment for Adam Hatfield now. He should let past Ian Campbell, and hopefully going into the fast left-hander of Hamilton's, Ian Campbell will make the move on him. So this could really bring Adam Hatfield into field.
Brilliant driving by Chris Hart. He was not going to let Ian Campbell through. He brought the car to the left-hand side, heading in towards Agostini, knowing that for a split second then there'd be a gap between the pair of them. But then driving through on the way up towards Hamilton comes Ian Campbell, and that compromises the exit speed of Chris Hart. And straight away he's back under pressure, not just from Adam Hatfield, but also from the Porsche of James Wallace. 3 together for the lead of Group GTH.
Just as I was saying, Adam Hatfield knew what was going to happen then. He let past the car early, and Chris Hart really tried his best to lock that Ian Campbell pass. But when you're a GT3 car and someone is starting to block you, it makes you want to pass them more, which you saw Ian Campbell dive bombing and sort of pushing Chris Hart off the track almost. So this is really playing into Adam Hatfield's hands.
Yeah, so Adam Hatfield will be desperate to try and grab a win, and Adam Hatfield, good to see him back behind the wheel, sharing with Kavi Jundu over the course of this weekend, but they'll be showing the car for the pit stop race later on. The difficulty is that he'll want to attack. We've not seen any mistakes from the car ahead of him at the moment, which is Chris Hart. He's a reasonably experienced driver as well, Chris Hart, having won the Fun Cup Championship, 3-4 years ago. Chris Hart was the champion in that. Adam Hatfield pushing hard, but he's got youngster James Wallace behind him, who we were chatting off microphone about James Wallace. massively impressed, considering no karting background, came straight out of Fiesta Juniors or Junior Saloons into this, drove in a GT4 car on slicks for the first time. He's been on the pace all season.
I know exactly how that feels. It's the exact same career path I took. So, you know, you're jumping into these fast cars, and I actually found it's really nice when you don't have any experience of anything, because you don't really know what to gauge is fast. So you're just jumping in a race car, and it's just a race car. You're not worried by how much quicker it is, if it's 50 mile an hour faster or if it's 30 mile an hour faster. That all sort of goes away because you have no experience anyway. So he's jumped in, and it is really tough to be quick straight away, but he's doing a really good job.
Here is another driver that's been doing a good job, Phil Carter. He's trying to put Tim Kresick under pressure, the two of them together. Not quite going to happen. There's also the second of the Greystone GT cars of Mark Hopton sitting behind, the driver I mentioned earlier on, who's gone really well recently. Was it 3 back-to-back group podiums for Mark Hopton it has been, and he dives at the inside of Tim Kresick and takes the place away. So the 2 Greystone McLarens now ahead of the Caffeine 6 by Par Motorsport Porsche, and they will be fighting for what will be 17th, 18th and 19th overall, but more importantly 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th in the class.
Exactly, as you saw, the Greystone, the blue Greystone car made the move up the inside, which he knew wouldn't work, but it put off the Caffeine car. So it then allowed him to get the run on the exit, and also allowed Mark Hopton to pass.
So down towards us now comes what is still the lead battle for Group GTH. Chris Hart having to work overtime to try and keep Adam Hatfield behind, but at the moment in the number 25 car, Adam Hatfield is not able to squeeze his way through. Adam was the 2018 champion in the GT Cup. He used to race in the Renault Clio Cup as well, did Adam Hatfield very, very briefly. He was a rookie champion in that back, so the best part 3 years earlier than he was the GT Cup champion 2015. But for the moment, Chris Hart just doing a really, really good job again. As you say, not easy to overtake, but for Chris Hart, just making sure he's neat and tidy and clean. He's a bit slower coming out of Murray's that time, and this could be the run, Sam, coming up.
Yeah, we know how quick the McLaren is in straight line as they go side by side into turn 1. Chris Hart has to brake later, but he's already passed. It just proves how quick the McLaren is in straight line, but the Mercedes does have that grip through turn 1 and then through turn 2. So I'm sure we'll see him fighting back and maybe trying to go deep into turn 2 to get the run back into turn 3.
The difficult for Chris Hart, difficulty for him as well, though, is that I noticed that one of the wing mirrors on the right-hand side is folded in. So that is the passenger side of this car. As it runs very wide and all over the grass coming out of Wilson. That might give James Wallace the opportunity to sneak through at the wheel of the Porsche. Difficulty is, he's got the mirror folded round, means that if anybody tries to sneak up the inside, he might not know they're there.
Exactly, it's actually more difficult when you've got a GT3 car coming around. Luckily with the Mercedes, the 6.2 litre V8, you can hear it from behind you. But when you've got these sort of quieter, faster cars that have a quieter engine, they're really hard to see and they come up so quickly. You can make a mistake and just turn in on one, which, will put both of you out the race, which is a real shame.
Yeah, be an inadvertent incident, but this is John Curry having a good little squabble as well. Now, this is the second of the 2 Make Happen Racing Mercedes. Right behind it is one of the Trade Centre Formula Woman cars, and that is the number 65 car, which is going to be Steph Saw, who was quick yesterday, and it's nice to see Steph back behind the wheel. She's been walking around the paddock all weekend, like most of them in Formula 1, with a big smile on their face.
Yeah, they should really be enjoying this weekend. It's 20 degrees, they're at Snetterton, it's their first race, and it's great to see them getting into this sort of battle. This is what they need for their career. They have to just get into these battles, try not to make mistakes, and try and find the move, try and make the gap, because that is the difficulty in racing. When you just keep lapping around, you get used to the tracks, but once you get into these situations, your racecraft comes in, and as a racing driver, that is the key to sort of making a career.
Yeah, and they will just get quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker, more seat time. They've done a lot more on the sims. They've done less testing than they wanted. They've entered the championship a couple of rounds later than initially anticipated, but they're out there and enjoying the opportunity. And Steph Saw is certainly giving John Curry a thing or two to think about, actually. John, who did claim his first group win of the season yesterday, if memory serves me correctly. So she's pushing hard, is Steph.
Yeah, it's very impressive. As you know, John Curry, he has been getting faster and faster. So for her to be on him, it's a really impressive first race for her. So hopefully we can see this sort of move. We know the McLaren's quick in a straight line. So maybe into turn 1 she can get a sort of a slipstream. But I think it's more likely going to be a next lap that she'll make the move. Yeah,
John Curry, former Ginetta G40 Cup racer, came out of the Caterham Academy, having to work overtime to try and keep Steph Saw at bay. 8.5 minutes remain. We've still got Ian Loggy leading the way by 3.4 seconds at this stage. And Sam's just spotted we've got a car in the pit lane, Sam.
Yeah, Adam Hatfield looks like he's had an issue, which is a real shame for them. He just made that move for the lead of GTH. So we'll be wondering what that is, and hopefully it's nothing too major and they can get out for the endurance race.
Yeah, enormous shame, isn't it? Yeah, because he was absolutely pushing hard, wasn't he, for the lead of Group GTH. So Ian Logie leads away and leads Group GT3. This is the car that is in second place at the moment but leads Group GTO, which is Steve Burgess. Third place is Simon Orange, but for Ian Logie, 4.0 seconds to the good. Last time through, he also set the best lap of the race with a 1 minute 49.813. That was a lap or two ago, actually, he set that one. And at the moment, looking reasonably untouchable, pretty much in control, but there's still work to do, there's still traffic to deal with.
This is the point for Steve Burgess where he has to keep his head in the game. You've seen Ian Logie about 3 or 4 seconds in front of you, and it looks like the gap isn't coming down. You can really get demoralised quite quickly. So he sort of just has to keep his head straight, and he is actually the quicker car over the sort of race distance. So hopefully he can keep his head down and hopefully catch up to that gap with 7 minutes remaining.
Yeah, Steve Burgess has got plenty of experience as well. He's a multiple Radical champion, whether it be either in the Radical Clubman's Cup, in the Radical Challenge. He was runner-up in the European Radical Championship some years ago, so first started in things like quad bikes, where he was a British champion there, and he was a British Superlight champion as well. And there is the car of, is that Adam Hatfield there? Came into the pits. They've got the car back out again. And whatever the problem was, they've not sold it, because that is pit lane exit he's retired.
Yeah, that is a real big shame. From what I'm hearing, these McLarens, they do struggle with the boost pipe for the turbo, which is what happened to the 17 car yesterday. So hopefully it's nothing too major, but yeah, that's a real big shame.
Now Roy Millington is coming under pressure here. This is Chris Hart that's bottled up behind him. Now this is less than ideal for Chris Hart, because the Ferrari is fighting for position with the Mercedes and the Porsche behind, but the Mercedes and the Porsche are fighting for the lead of Group GTH. So the last thing that Chris Hart needs is more pressure, and ideally what he wants is Roy Millington to get out of the way. But fair play to Roy, why should he?
Exactly. The issue isn't these GTH cars. They are much lighter than the challenge car in front, so through this tight twisty stuff they can really keep up with the challenge car, and then once you get to the straight line the challenge car goes again. So it can be really frustrating when you can't pass this challenge car and he's sort of just holding you up, which is really playing into the hands of Wallace behind him. So hopefully it won't affect him too much.
There, number 11, Mike Price, 5-second penalty for track limits. Now Mike Price is at the moment 15 seconds up the road from the next car behind him, which would be John Whitehouse at the wheel of the number 44 Paddock Motorsport McLaren. So it doesn't affect his position on the track, but it does mean that, you know, if he catches one of those McLarens and takes the opportunity to squeeze through on corrected times, he's got to be 5 seconds up the road from them. So yeah, it's not done him any harm, but it's not doing him any favours at the same time, is it?
Exactly. It's a black and grey area, these track limits. Some people hate them, some people love them. I think they should put gravel around the track and let us go straight up to the gravel, and that's the racing. But everyone's got their own opinion on it, and it is a real shame to do that. So he's only got himself to blame for that, unfortunately. Yeah,
it's difficult though, isn't it? That sometimes, you know, when the tyres start to wear and the car was sticking one lap and the next minute it doesn't. But that's part of being a racing driver, adapting to the circumstances around you all of the time. Look at this fight that's going on still for third and fourth. We have seen several occasions this year where there is nothing really to choose between Simon Orange and Morgan Tilbrook, and here we are again. They are absolutely together. They're together in terms of championship points as well, because there's nothing between them. Was it 6 championship points separating the number 67 car from the 66 in terms of the GT3 scoring?
Yeah, I believe it was 8 points after the fastest laps were added. But as we saw, and I said, Snetterton is a really hard place to track. If you just place your car in the middle, it's not wide enough to get 2 cars around. But Morgan Tilbrook has to try and just hustle him into a mistake. That's all he can hope for in the last 4 minutes. He's been stuck behind him for 20 minutes, and he knows where he's stronger. You always find the corners where you're stronger, and that's the ones you know you have to capitalise on. So you try and make them make a mistake the corner before, maybe show your nose. But yeah, he just has to hope for a mistake now.
Yeah, a couple of cars that are receiving black and white warning flags as well, one of which is Steph Saw at the wheel of the number 65 McLaren, the other of which is number 96, which is John Curry, who she's fighting with. So they're both pushing each other to the very, very limits, and both just going beyond the circuit limits 1 or 2 more times than the officials are happy with just less than 4 minutes to go.
It always happens when you're chasing a car and they're doing it as well, because you think, well, if they're doing it, I can do it. But as you've just seen, they're both being penalised for this. So it swings and roundabouts. So hopefully they both don't do it too much, but I always try and save a few for the last lap, and then on the last lap banzai, you can take the track limits, gain that second on the corner, and then make the move.
Yeah, use them all up on the last lap rather than use them all up on the first
exactly.
lap. And this is the battle that we're talking about. So this is John Curry fighting with Steph Saw, whilst they also need to bear in mind that they've got the fourth and fifth place cars bearing down on them. So quick flash of the lights, which allows the GTH class runners to know that the quicker GT3s are coming through. And sensible driving from Steph Saw there as well, not wanting to make any enemies on her first weekend of racing. She moved right off line to let the quicker cars through. Good driving.
Exactly. It's really nice when someone moves out the way, but also sometimes on the corners you want them to just stick to their line, because you can't tell where they're going to go. So if they just stick to their line, sometimes it helps a lot more with the GT3 car, because you know exactly where they're going to go. But in a straight line, she did the right thing. She moved out the way, let these GT3 cars pass, then resume your battle.
And she hasn't lost a great deal of time, if anything, as a result of that. So over the start-finish line has gone Ian Loggy, followed by Steve Burgess. Here comes the lead battle for Group GTH. 'Twas ever still Chris Hart leading the way, but he's also still got James Wallace absolutely in his wheel tracks. Now, Chris Hart hasn't put a wheel wrong. There's a bit of a wiggle mid-corner there, though. He's suffering from a bit of oversteer, maybe mid-corner oversteer.
Yeah, sometimes when you take, as the fuel load goes down these cars, the rear starts to get a little bit lighter, and that's what you can see sometimes as the fuel stint goes on, the tyres are wearing, and also taking that weight out the back of the car. The balance shifts more towards the front, which then creates the car to have a little bit of oversteer. But I'm sure Chris Hart is loving this. I know he's a proper racer, and this is exactly what he wants when he comes to the championship.
He'll have a big smile on his face if he can hang on to the lead of the group, and also he'll have a big smile on his face if he can hang on to the lead of the group. Was the number 9 Lamborghini that we saw there, which is Jensen Lunn. He continues to lead Group GTC, whilst this car continues to lead the race overall and Group GT3. Ian Loggy looking to see what he might be able to do. He's only claimed one overall win in the GT Cup Championship so far this season. That was the very first opening round at Donington Park. He's been consistent in all the rest of them. Been on the podium yesterday. He was on the podium at Brands and on the podium at Donington, but only once on the top step of it. So it's not been the easiest start to the weekend for him, but as ever you talk about damage limitation, the drive from 23rd to 3rd yesterday, qualifying on pole, getting the nice little break early on really helped, didn't it, with a 3-second lead after lap 1, but he's still got work to do, but it does look as though he's on for win number 2 of the season as he heads on to his final lap very shortly. And Mike Price, a spin down at Brundle and Nelson. That was the car that was in 5th position. Where is he going to rejoin? He is going to rejoin behind battle of the GTH cars that we were talking about. So yeah, problems for Mike Price. That's dropped him a little bit down, further down through the order than he would have wished.
As I was saying, when the weight comes up the cars, the rear does get loose, and that is a very easy corner to spin on. The car is very unloaded, and if you just hit that inside sausage curve, it just bounces the car across the track, and they don't have enough steering lock to catch. They're not a drift car. Even pushing through the pit lane, you sometimes struggle to get out. So, it's a real shame. You've been really impressing me today. But yeah, that is a big shame for Mike Price.
The good thing is for Mike, I don't think he lost a position, because he'd got enough of a gap between himself and John Whitehouse that by the time he'd fired the car back up again and got it pointing in the right direction, he still hung on to 5th place and is still, because he's got that time penalty hanging over him, 8 seconds ahead of it. So even on corrected times, he's still good for that position. And problem, that's Jensen Lern, who is leading Group GTC. That's the exit of the bomb hole, isn't it? That would have been a fast spin.
Yeah, that is the exit of the bomb hole. So it's a very interesting place to lose the car. You don't really see many people spinning there, even though it is one of the most undulating corners on this track. So you can bottom out and spin quite easily if you're offline. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird spin there. So hopefully no damage and he can carry on racing. But he has just lost the class lead.
He has, yeah. Lucky Kier at the wheel of the Ferrari will have gone through to pick up the class lead, unfortunately. And it doesn't look as though it's going to be 3 out of 3 for the Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini. Ian Loggy is down towards the bottom of the Bentley Straight for the final time. He has just managed to put a lap on the car that's leading Group GTH, and that's going to be a big let-off, isn't it, for Chris Hart? Now, big spin also for Steve Burgess. He was right onto the coattails of the Porsche of James Wallace, but has lost the tail end of the Radical there, and he's lost that a long way round, almost on the exit of the corner. Looped it on the power, maybe?
Yes, definitely. It's a hot day. These rear tyres get really hot, and Steve has been pushing every single lap, and it's just caused him to lose a little bit of grip. And
yeah. So checkered flag then for Ian Loggy. Steve Burgess does get going again. Mike Price will sneak through. So Ian Loggy claims the second win of the championship season in the GT Cup Championship. We'll wait the arrival of Simon Orange, who will be promoted to 2nd overall. It won't affect the championship scoring for Simon Orange as he finishes in 2nd, because the Radical was in a different group, so it doesn't affect the amount of championship points that they all score. But Simon Orange finishes in 2nd place. Morgan Tilbrook will be there in 3rd place. And wait the arrival of the car that's 4th over the start-finish line very shortly. It'll be Mike Price that will finish in 4th, but he's got a 5-second penalty ahead of him. So on corrected times, it will be Steve Burgess in 4th place, Mike Price in 5th place, and it should be John Whitehouse who completes the top 6. The winner of Group GTH Chris Hart, and I would imagine he'll A, have a big smile on his face, but B, be pleased to get out of that car, because that was a tough race, wasn't it, for the win?
Yeah, 25 minutes of having to watch your mirrors. You do spend more time watching your mirrors than you do the track. You sort of go into this mode where you're just driving on what you feel. But no, he did an incredible job to keep behind a youngster who obviously is trying to prove himself in this sport. So Chris just, he held the line, held the car in the right place, and did all the right things.
So any standout drives in that one that you could pick out based on what you've seen, Sam?
I was going to say Steve Burgess, but unfortunately he span right before the finish line, which, to be honest, is the most annoying time to spin. You fire it back up, you get going, and then you see the checker flags there, and you think, oh man, all I had to do was make it past 3 more corners. So I was going to say Steve Burgess, but you can never fault Ian Loggy. Pulling that big gap at the start has just saved his race. But I'd also say Chris Hart is up there.
Yeah, I was going to say Chris Hart. He was the one that stood out for me. Didn't put a wheel wrong, was always under pressure. In arguably one of the most competitive groups that we've got in GT Cup. But that saying Chris Hart is not taking anything away from that man there, Ian Loggy, who will be very, very pleased with the 25 championship points that he'll have picked up for that one. And you can add to that the extra point for the fastest lap as well. So that is, as we said earlier on, real damage limitation based on what happened yesterday at turn number 1, where unfortunately Ian Campbell was tipped onto the grass and then was out of control and cannoned into the side of Ian Loggy, and Ian Loggy was out straight away on lap number 1 of race number 1, which put him from 23rd on the grid up to 3rd yesterday, and from pole today converts it to the race win, so he'll be happy, and hopefully there'll be a few more smiling faces around the paddock area as well. So all of the cars have taken the checkered flag. We should be able to confirm the results with you in just a short moment's time, and of course we will do it all again later on with our pit stop race coming up later on over the course of this afternoon, before we then pack things away here at Snetterton and head to Alton Park in a few weeks' time. So let's confirm the results then. It is Ian Loggy that claims the win, from Simon Orange in 2nd place and Morgan Tilbrook in 3rd. The winner of Group GTO, Steve Burgess, finishes in 4th place despite the spin, and it's 5th for Mike Price, with John Whitehouse finishing in 6th place, Graham Tilley in 7th, and the winning Group GTC goes the way of Lucky Kira, who was there in 8th place. Ian Campbell recovered from 9th after his spin on lap number 1, and it was Jensen Lunn that finished in 10th position. Charlotte Birch was there in 11th place, ahead of Roy Millington in 12th position. The winner of Group GTH was Chris Hart, who was there in 13th place. James Wallace was 14th, ahead of Tamer Shahan, who was there in 15th place. Philip Carter, Mark Hopton, Tim Kresick, John Curry, and then Steph Saw complete the top 20. Then it's Erica Hoffman and Ron Trenker, with John Dillon only in 23rd because of his puncture and limping the car back round to the pit lane. And we know the whereabouts of Adam Hatfield. Problems, came into the pit lane, didn't sort it, retired at pit lane exit. And that's it, Sam. We're done with our sprint race. Thank you for joining me. You're going to join me again for the pit stop race later on?
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you very much for having me again. I'm really looking forward to the endurance race. We see Steve Burgess did set the fastest lap. Sorry, not the fastest lap, the 2nd fastest lap, which means he's going to be beside Ian Loggy for the lead. And we know how quick that Radical is off the start line, so I'm pretty sure you'll see the Radical into lead at turn 1, which is really going to spice things up in the next race.
Well, we'll wait and see on that one. So that's it from us for the moment, but let's hand you back downstairs to the pits and Michelle.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I am here in Parc Fermé where the cars are all coming in. And let's have a chat with our man here, our winner, Ian Loggy. Brilliant. You must be chuffed to bits with that 2nd win of the season.
Yeah, good start, and it's the key thing, get away clean, and then just work on trying to build the fastest lap for the next race, which I think we're pole for the next race as well, so that's a real added bonus, because if you don't get that and you end up 4th or 5th or something, then it makes it a real tough job to win the race. So yeah, happy with that, feel good.
Yeah, and of course you're going to be riding solo, aren't you, for the pit stop?
Yeah, so what I've got to do is on against the AMs, I've got to get another getaway, a bit like that, and try and make 15-20 seconds, and then the second half I'm racing the pros. But yeah, if I can make a big enough start, then hopefully we'll be good. It'll be interesting, let's put it that way.
Well, I'll let you go and refuel and refresh. You've got a few hours until we do the next one. Let's go over here, because Mark, you were saying one of the standout drivers for you. In fact, I've got to find him, haven't I? Has he gone? Has he disappeared? Where's our man? Is he behind you?
But if you're asking me, I don't know. There he is. There he is. He's behind you there. There you
go. I was like, where's
go
he
right.
gone?
There's Chris.
You were saying that one of the standout drivers, weren't you, Mark, was Chris Hart?
Absolutely. I think it's well worth gauging his views on what was a busy race for him.
Exactly. I've just been talking to Mark Werrell, who's doing our commentary, and he was saying that for him, you were one of the standout drivers of the race. Really solid stuff. And of course, you got a group win.
Yeah, it was certainly one we had to work for out there. I think they've got the block just right now. Some of the other cars are faster on the straights. We seem to have more on the brakes and the slow corners, so it's certainly making it interesting. And yeah, the young lads are making me work for it again. I'm getting too old for this, I think.
You're never too old,
No,
Chris.
I agree. You're as young as you feel.
It's all about experience as well, isn't it, behind
That's
the
right.
wheel and in the seat?
Yes, wisdom.
Wisdom. There you go, Mark. That's what it's about. It's all about wisdom. So, yeah, we've got a few more. I don't know if there's anyone else I can have a little chat to that's around here. Well,
Lucky
it's
Kira.
Should we go and have a word with
he
Lucky?
won his group.
Quick
So.
word. Lucky Kira, hello. Well, that says it all, doesn't it? Would you like to sort of expand on that?
Yeah, it was an amazing race. Obviously, I had a GT3 between us for the cup, for the class.
Yeah.
But once the GT3 got out of the way, I just kept it steady and kept on it. And I won't say fortunately, but he had a little moment and I got past.
Well done. Nice to chat to you. Maybe speak to you later. And I've just spied Simon Orange as well over here. So let's see if I can wheedle my way through. Follow me, for he knows I'm coming. You can see he's getting himself ready. Yes, Simon Orange, I am coming for you. Well done. You ended up second.
Yeah, I did end up second. I was struggling all the way, to be honest. Somehow the tyres have not got quite right yet, although the JMH and Jeff and Chris have got the car spot on, but we're having real trouble with the tyres, unlike Ian by the look of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course you had Morgan Tilbrook on your tail, didn't you, for a lot of it?
I think for 98.5% of it, yeah. And it was funny actually, because on the fast bits I was quick and I was leaving him, but the slow bits he's right up there. And if it was a different track, I think he'd have gone past me pretty well, pretty easily.
Yeah. So you're feeling positive going into the pit stop race later?
Yeah, I don't know how we'll fare, because I didn't feel like I was doing any fast laps, so we might be a little bit down the order. But we've got to get our tyre situation right. These new tyres are really difficult.
Yeah, well, brilliant. Listen, good luck. You've got a couple of hours to sort it out. Chill out, but also sort your tyres out.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Did I see on an advert, by the way, on the TV?
No.
I think I did.
No, I don't know. No, I don't think he did. Listen, I don't know if we need to hand over to anything, or shall I carry on talking? I think we'll do a wrap up, because I tell you what, people need to get sorted and ready for the lunch break, and then of course we're going to be back for the pit stop. Now that is the longer race, and we are due to go live with that at the race is 3:55, just before 4 o'clock. Things can change, things can get brought forward or get delayed, so keep an eye on the social media channels for that. You can go to Facebook, you can of course go to Instagram, GT Cup, just look it up, and of course we'll be streaming it all live. They'll also have the latest when it comes to the results on there as well, particularly if you look at the Instagram stories. That's a good place to check out all the results. So we'll be back probably just shortly before that starts, maybe about 3:45 I would say. So join us if you can, and we'll see you soon.